Howdy, partner. Welcome to one of the most northern parts of the United States of America. Travel with me upriver as we talk to a bunch of ladies and fellers and they share their tales of wit and wisdom. That's right, it's time again for Skagit Storytellers with Liz Rankin.
But I remember some friends of mine, when I was in high school, we had our own radio station at the high school. Yeah.
What high school?
Mohawk Trail Regional High School in Buckland, Shelburne, Massachusetts. Mm-hmm.
Well, that was going to be one of my questions is, are you from here?
No, I'm not.
You were not born here.
I was not.
Where were you born?
I was born in Shelburne Falls, Massachusetts. So okay. In the Berkshires, they referred to the area, the hill towns. So, like, for instance, in the high school I went to, there was 9 hill towns. So it was 9 grammar schools that eventually all ended up in the middle school and high school, which was all in the same building.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, very sparse as far as kids were concerned when I was growing up, yeah. I was born in 1962, so I'm 61 now, and I grew up in Western Mass, went to school there, high school, and let's see, it was about the mid-'80s, probably about the mid-'80s, going into the latter half. 2 things occurred in especially in the Berkshires and Western Mass, more than the other half of the state. The Connecticut River bisects the state. So if you're from Massachusetts, especially from Western Mass, you were quick to designate the fact, I'm from Western Massachusetts, not from the other side of the river. Anywhere I go and somebody says, where are you from? I say, Massachusetts. They go, oh, Boston. And it's like, no.
Oh, is that on the east side?
Yeah, that's on the east side. It's
Okay.
like, no, there is more to this. It's a commonwealth. It's small, but there's more.
I always like to start my podcast with talking about how we met, but I didn't know that we hadn't met yet.
We very well could have, but we have no recollection of it. I don't know. I left some of those places just so toasted that I have no idea what happened. Toasted. Who the heck knows what I might have met. Who knows who I met.
Actually, speaking of that, I did write Brian and Eric. And I said, hey, guys, I said, Todd's coming over. Do you have any great Todd stories?
Oh, wonderful.
Or memories or anything?
That's why Brian called me on the way over here. But he didn't. Yeah, but he didn't. What are you doing? What are you doing? And I thought, going down for the pod. Oh, okay. All right. So what do they got?
Well, of course, because I wrote Eric and Linda. Of course, Linda, hearts and exclamation points. Oh, Todd's great. He'll have great stories. Let me know when I can hear it. And I said, Linda, I knew that you would answer like this. She's so sweet. But Eric, because you were just saying you don't remember, he said, the one that comes to mind to me was the first time I met Todd. Do you know the story, or do you remember it? The first time you met Eric?
Go on.
Okay. I was giving a talk about my professional work at the old courthouse in Bellingham. Mm-hmm. But the day before, I threw my back out, so I was hopped up on painkillers during my talk and can barely remember even being there. Todd was one of the organizers and was very gracious and helpful to me while I was there. It wasn't until a couple of years later that we became friends with Todd and Renee through Brian Young. They have always been dear friends of ours ever since. Mm-hmm. So you remember that?
Yes, that is true. That is when, we used to do a career day at the museum, and that was the old city hall. And I remember he was the keynote that talked about his. And at first, if I remember right, I heard he may not be able. We might not have a keynote. So because we heard that he had some bad back problems, and and as I remember it, no, Eric didn't look too well when he came in. You could tell he had been in pain or was in pain for sure. Yeah, yeah. Poor guy. I remember that. Yeah.
Can you since he shared a story, please share a story about Eric.
What was always nice is, I live in Bellingham. He's down in Skagit on the flats, and if I had like a birthday party going on for me or someone, or getting together for drinks or something like that, and if I text them, hey, blah, 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 we're going to do this. Had him up for Christmas dinner one year when Linda wasn't in town. And he's such a person who's when he's in his work, he's really in his work. But I can't think of a time when Eric didn't say, okay, yeah, I'll be there. And boom, he's there. And I'm almost always shocked. It's like that he pulls himself out just for, like, at first I was like, wow, is this personal courtesy that he's here? It's like, wow, this is really nice having Eric here. And yeah, I mean, he's somebody I feel like I could call up and say, Eric, I need, boom, he's there. He'd
that's awesome.
drop whatever he's doing. Before he would probably get off his computer and come. Now he would probably drop his paintbrush and come. So,
oh my gosh, yeah, he was showing me the painting that he did, the arena.
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
know the name of it, but like the backs of. Are you in that one? The backs of people's heads?
Yes, that's the hippodrome.
Yes,
I mean, yeah, oh yeah, you can see my bald spot perfectly.
Is that you?
On that. Yeah, profile. My kind of slight Romanesque nose.
He's like, I need a bald spot. Todd, can you come over?
You're darn tootin'. Yeah, I'll take my bald spot and take it with me wherever I go.
Oh, that's so funny.
But no, I mean, because, oh my gosh, his artwork is just incredible. And I guess he's working on a piece now that I haven't been down to see. But yeah, it's...
Yeah, he showed me around his studio. I was just blown away. And I don't paint, so I don't understand the process. And just so he's explaining it to me, and it was way more detailed than I ever thought. Like, he's
it's unbelievable.
So meticulous. And
well, he's got like one hair on his brush. You know?
Yeah.
I can understand the meditative process of doing something like that, but that is entirely beyond my scope.
Yeah.
I cat's off to him. It's just fantastic, the stuff that he does. Yeah.
Can you guess any of the stories that Brian mentioned?
Oh dear God, it could be just about anything. I can't even. No, it could be one of 100.
There was just a couple. He said, ask Todd about calling X-Files producers up out of the blue to get him a star for Mountain Runners.
Oh.
Is that Kevin?
Okay. No, that's Kevin's a friend of Brian's. And...
But Kevin was on X-Files, right? Okay.
No, Kevin wasn't.
Oh.
This was William B. Davis, who played the Smoking Man.
Oh, okay.
And so I don't know how this trend ever started with me, but I sort of grabbed onto the motto is ignorance is bliss, where just because I want to do something, it doesn't mean I know how to do it. And I found that it's not stumbling around in the dark, but it's using ignorance to your best advantage is the best way I can describe it. So basically, I had done a documentary about a local shipyard before the Mountain Runners. And for my first run, I thought it'd come out pretty good, and we got some good kudos with it. And it was a great stepping stone into a bigger project. But let's look at it this way. I have, aside from paying my admission and going in and watching a movie and having my own, take of it, I know absolutely nothing about making a film. Nothing at all. I mean, I just decided one day, if they don't know I can't do this, then I can do it, because the only person who doesn't know is me. And that is true. I mean, the only thing I can say I went into the projects with is I have done a lot of oral history interviews. I have learned a lot about the process. I've taken some classes and conferences. And so that was one of my main interests early on when I was doing the history actually, even before I even got into history, I was going around. I was a kid going around with my little tape recorder, taping people, their experiences and stuff, because I just thought it was cool. I thought it was fun, and I got like boxes full of tapes and have no idea what to do with them to this day. But I feel as if for myself that I've mastered the art of sitting down and doing an interview with somebody. So talking to somebody in a documentary situation is very easy for me. So I felt as if I had that under my belt. And what I wanted to do was not just a film, but I wanted to do a documentary or a docudrama, maybe.
But you're also passionate about the subject, which is huge.
Well, you have to be passionate about something that you're doing, because if you're gonna, go for it and go all in, I mean, like I said, ignorance is bliss, but you got to have passion to have ignorance.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that makes sense, but so anyways, I got into this and for mountain runners, and I can tell you.
So you call people and be like, "Hi, I'm Todd,
Yes.
the film director," as you're like laughing to yourself.
Yes. No, I wouldn't even give myself that title. I mean, like, I wouldn't give myself a title. I would just say I'm doing this.
Yeah.
And so one of the things, so we had done a lot of interviews, and we have, let's see, I think that was after, this incident that Brian wants to refer to is, let's give you one incident leading up to it, is 1911's The Race. Okay, they had a Baldwin train engine that's in this. And I'm thinking, well, how the heck are we going to do a scene without a train? I mean, part of the routes were the train. Another part of it was old, stripped down cars. So I needed these things. And so for the train, I find out that there's a train museum in Centralia. And I call them up, and I'm like, yeah, my name's Todd Warger. I'm at Bellingham, and I'm doing this film about this race, 1911. This is what it's about. First mountain race in the country. There was a train, and I'm giving. I mean, there's dead silence on the other side. And I just, passion, like you said, and a little bit of bullshit and a little bit of knowing at least what I'm doing. And this is why I want the train. And it was silence, and the person on the other end's like, "Are you serious? Did this really, really occur?" And I says, yes, it did. And then there was dead silence, and he's like, "Well, would you put us in the credits?" And I'm like, "Of course I'll put you in the credits." I said, "I just need the use of a train, an engineer, and just running this thing around the tracks and going as fast as you can go." "All right, you can have the train. When do you want it?" And so it didn't cost us anything, and I got the use of a train. And same thing with the cars. I walked up to this group during this car convention.
The Model T.
Yeah. They're sitting around in lawn chairs having beers, waiting for people to come up and look at their cars. So I told them what I was doing. And they just all sat there, and one of the guys said, "Yeah, all right, sure, I'm in." And then the others said they were in. So I got the cars. So after a while, when things started really rolling, I'm like, there's some potential ideas here that, I'm thinking maybe film festivals and stuff like this, we got some good stuff going on. So then I was like, it'd be really cool, and maybe a boost to get into a film festival if we had an actual actor. I don't know what the hell I was thinking. It's like, who am I to even think of such a thing? So anyways, there was a gentleman who was on our board, and I got a hold of him, Bob Goodwin. He was one of the producers on the X-Files series. So I knew him. We knew him. We knew each other enough to say hi. Mm-hmm. Hi, Bob. That was it, and that's all I really knew. And so I got his phone number, and because I knew he knew people. I didn't know who he knew, but I knew he knew people, and so I got a hold of him. Let's see. I called, left a message. he called me, I think, if I remember right, from California. He was down in L.A. pitching some idea. And he says, what is this? What do you want? So I told him what I was doing really quick, said, I'd like to get together and I would, I'm looking for somebody to be in the film. And he was just like, yeah, no interest whatsoever, basically. But I did say, if you get online and just look at our website we're developing or something like that, you'll see what it is. Yup. And the phone hung up. And I think it was the next day, he calls me up and he says, I'm heading to the plane and I'll be up there tomorrow. Let's get together at Village Books. He goes, let's get together. He says, and I want to see you. So I'm like, all right. So, and then I'm sitting there. He comes in and blah, 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 sits down and basically is like, what do you want? And I have no idea what got into me at that moment. But instead of just saying what I wanted, I said, well, I don't know, Bob, you called the meeting. I didn't. You're the one that called me. I called you the first time, but you called me the second time. You said you wanted to meet. What do you want? And he looked at me totally dumbfounded. And he's like, well, that is true. But he's like, I did look at the stuff. And he goes, I'm intrigued. He goes, okay, pitch. So I told him more about the stuff. And this is actually how I met Brian, too.
Okay.
And so I told him I wanted an actor. And he looks at me and he goes, have you ever had an actor before? Have you ever done it? No. No. I says, I don't know any of this. He goes, do you have a script or anything? No. Then he sits there and then right in front of me, which I thought was really hilarious, is he takes out his phone and he calls Brian. Yeah, and does the opening. Hi, how you doing, Brian? Blah, 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 how's... And then he says, hey, I got this guy. He's got this crazy idea. He wants me to give him an actor. And he's like, and he goes, I don't know what he's doing, but he says it sounds interesting, blah, blah, blah. It's like, I in my mind, I'm going, dude, I'm sitting right here.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
He goes, I don't know if he's a quack or not. I don't know, but he's it sounds cool. So the agreement was, I will pitch the idea to William B. Davis, the smoking man, who was living in Vancouver at the time.
Oh, okay. It was filmed in Vancouver. X-Files, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And he's like, and he says, if you will work with Todd to film this, he goes, I will introduce Todd, will come down and see you. And that's how I met Brian. So Brian's going, I don't know what the hell's going on. Bob's got some weird idea that he's met this guy. He doesn't know that he wants to make a film. So needless to say, Brian got on board. Brian gets a hold of Bob and says, yeah, okay. It sounds good. I'm in, and whatever. So I'm sitting at the house one day and this phone rings at night and it was William B. Davis. And he's like, hello, Todd. I'm like, yeah. He goes, well, this is William B. Davis. I'm like, oh my God. He goes, and actually he knew about the race, and from where he lived, he could see the mountain, and he was passionate about the idea.
Oh, cool.
He wanted to know more information. He was very passionate, and he was like, no, this sounds pretty cool. And he goes, send me a script. And, it was cool. But he says, I still want you to go through my agent, because I think, if I remember correctly, I think we agreed on an amount, and it was like trivial. I think it was like $1,000 for his time. And so it was something like that. And so I'm like, he's like, is that agreeable to you? I'm like, yeah. I says, that's agreeable to me. So I says, that's a huge help to the production, because we're trying to do this without having never to be in the hole. So a couple of days later, I'm at Avenue Bread with some friends, and my phone rings, and I get on there, and I can't remember the guy's name, but it's Davis's agent, and he's acting all official, and everything. And he's like, I understand you want to have Mr. Davis on one of your shoots. And where's this going to be? And I told him, when is this going to be? And I told him and all this. And he's like, well, he goes, and what are you willing to pay for Mr. Davis's time? And at the time, I remember now, we ended up being $1,000. But at the time, I said, I'm willing to give Mr. Davis $500. Dead silence. This is where ignorance comes in. I have no idea what these guys get paid. I don't know anything. All I know is a guy wants to be in the film. That's all I know. Through my doing, of course. And so I get it's dead silence. And he's like, say that again? And I says, $500. He goes, Mr. Davis starts at about $5,000, sir, just for a couple hours, and you want him for a day? And I says, yeah. And he says, well, that's just not going to happen. So he's like, I'll tell you what. What if we say $5,000 for the day, and I'll try to talk him into it? And I says, I'm holding firm at $500. Oh, yeah, I remember exactly what happens now. Okay, I was trying to figure out how I got to the $1,000 one. So it was like $500. And he says, I'm sorry, sir, that's just not going to hold water. And he hangs up on me. I'm like, whatever. And I told, the people at the table I was having breakfast with, they were like, oh, my God, you know what you just... I'm like, I'm not out anything because I don't have any money. So I'm like, that was a shot in the dark. If they want to say no, I says, I can say I got this far, but I don't have the money. So I says, I did what I could. The phone rings again. The agent is on the phone. He is pissed. He is mad. He goes, I don't know what kind of deal that you made with Bill, but that deal is between you and him, and I want nothing to do with this. And he hangs up. I'm like, well, what the hell was that about? And about 15 minutes later, William B. Davis called. Bill calls me up. And so he's like, I see you got off the phone with my agent. I'm like, yeah. He goes, yeah. He goes, I'll do this. He says, it's no problem. But he says, we're going to have to do a little bit better than 5. And that's when we agreed on the 1,000. I says, he says, can you come up with 1,000? I said, I can come up with 1,000. He goes, you've got me for a day. I'll come down. He was fantastic. He was, oh my Lord. He was so incredible to work with. We shot all of his stuff right off the bat because we didn't want to waste his time. And there was, just about, I think everybody on the set were just amateurs. They weren't doing it for the pay. They were doing it for credit, and they were just happy to do it. They were excited. We got done with Bill instantly, gave Bill his money, and said, thank you, Bill. I really, really appreciate this. And I says, your scenes are shot. And he just sat there kind of twisting around in a chair, and he's just wanted to say something. And then finally he says, well, do I have to go? No, you don't have to. He goes, well, I kind of want to hang out and just talk to the guys and, and kind of coach them along and stuff and just hang out.
Oh, that's great.
And it was like, are you kidding? I mean, that is just absolutely fantastic.
That's awesome.
And it was, yeah. So again,
$1,000 well spent.
$1,000 in ignorance.
Yeah.
And that's how that film basically got done.
My friend Tim was here last week, and he was saying he works with lots of different musicians, and he said, I'll take a D- musician over an A+ musician any day if they're passionate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see that. And a lot of the people I worked with were passionate. Kevin, when he came on as our narrator, he was passionate about the idea. Eric was passionate about it to help. I think they saw something more in it than just a release. It's like, okay, this thing is done, it's packaged, gone off to the next project. And we grew a lot of enduring friendships out of, the whole thing. It's the same thing with my writing. I decided one day I want to write some books. I don't know the first thing about writing a book. I never knew anything about it. I was a D&C student in English. I couldn't tell you the difference between a pronoun, a noun, and a verb. And honestly, to this day, I probably still can't. And that never stopped me. And I told everybody, again, I would go around and talk different ones into publishing for me. And they're like, and they would say the same thing. They would say, well, you're so passionate about this. You got me excited. and I said, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm only as good as my editor. And that's where that stops. And if anybody has anything to say about stuff that I write, I just go, well, I write for myself. I'm not necessarily writing for you. You're picking it up and buying it, and you're reading it, and you can interpret whatever I write any way you want. But the
guy that was here right before you, he's opening up a new place called the Bigfoot Den in Cedar Woolley, and I said, so have you ever opened up a restaurant before? He's like, no. He knows that he's always wanted to do it, and he loves. It's really amazing. He's there 24/7 getting that place set up. So again, like, it's all about passion. And he goes, yeah, I'm gonna have live music and maybe karaoke. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, what kind of musicians? He's like, I don't know. I was like, well, I could give you some names. He's like, yeah, that'd be great. I don't even know like what the setup would be, or kind of reminds me of you. Like,
I don't want to put myself in a position of not doing something because I don't know how to do it. Mm-hmm. And if I fail, I'm not out anything. Yeah. I failed just because I simply really did not know what I was doing. Yeah. If something I try is an absolute flop, I know, well, I'll try something else. But no, I was never educated in such a way to do some of the things that I do. And I feel as if that's what keeps my energy level up, is I'm exploring and do things that I wouldn't ordinarily do. But I think the key to that type of attitude is not being a total know-it-all. That it's not, there's such a thing as bluffing your way and being an arrogant bluff. Yeah. That's two different things. So I am quick, very quick, to take things to my limitations and not passing the buck, but passing on to someone who knows more than me that's willing to be a part. I don't know anything about editing, so why should I get in there and give my input on something I don't know about? Yeah. I think the key element to some of the projects and things I do is my willingness to listen, be guided, rely on somebody else's expertise, don't get in the way, learn something so that you can converse and discuss, but not being, it's okay. Do not to be so arrogant that you're pushing people away and like pretending that you're actually knowing more than you know. I try and figure out how to actually say this. How do you say something when, no, I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm not relying on you to do it, but what I'm doing is I'm carrying the ball as far as I can take it. I can't take it any further because I don't have that expertise. Yeah, yeah. But if you want to work with me, I'll make it as good for you as I possibly can, and maybe pick up a couple of things on the way.
Well, and I mean, not just enthusiasm, obviously, like, I think you work very hard, and you mentioned something about energy. Do you feel like people comment on like, Todd, like, how do you do all this stuff? Do you get that a lot?
Oh yeah, I do get that a lot.
I feel like I kind of got that vibe off you. I get that a lot too.
I can't. I honestly do not have an answer for that. I struggle for that answer. About 3 years ago, in October, actually, 3 years ago, I decided to take on an extra job. So I work at the Whatcom Museum. Okay. I work for the city of Bellingham, and I've been there for 29 years. And during COVID, when that hit, we had choices. You could stay home. You could use up your vacation. Well, nobody knew how long anything was going to last. So you could use up your vacation, then your sick time, and then we'll see where we're at, basically. Or you could be deployed doing something. And I was like, I am a little greedy there because I'm like, well, wait a minute here. I worked hard for that vacation time and that sick time. And when this is all over, I might want to do something. I ain't using that up. So I chose the deployment. So they're like, all right, well, we're going to send you over to the Salvation Army that's starting a food bank. And so I did that. And I enjoyed it. I mean, it was fun. It was like a workout. Because of my other job, I'm sitting around a lot and using my noggin instead of my bronze, which I don't have much bronze, but I'm using one and not the other. But the other job, I'm using that. And the people I work with they're a bunch of characters. I mean, they're fun, they're loving, it's like, Jesus, it's kind of like it's the family. It's the side of the family you don't take the girl home to see, It's just like, these are the wacky people, but they're fun. They're just exciting. You never know what's going to happen. So when everything ended, I went back and volunteered a little bit more. Then finally I realized, I'm here a lot. And I'm like, why don't you guys just give me a job? I mean, like, I'm here anyways. They didn't want to lose me, so they gave me a job.
Okay.
So then from that point on, I'm like, well, everybody is telling me, you do know you're working 7 days a week. I'm like, yeah, but I can take a day off. I get vacation time. And they're like, yeah, but you're working 7 days a week. I'm like, yeah. Well, I said to myself, I'll do this for as long as I'm capable. When I can't do it, I'll stop. So it's been 3 years. I work 7 days a week. I work 60 to 65 hours minimum, sometimes 70. In that time, I managed to, let's see, I think I put out 2 books. So I managed to still write 2 books, articles for our journal, our Historical Society journal. Plus I have a social life and still do things.
Yeah.
So why do I do that? I have zero idea where the energy comes from. Now, there are days, I'll admit, where I'm nosediving. I'm that submarine that's ditching. It's heading to the bottom of the reef. But I rebound.
Well, you're doing stuff that you want to do. Like
I'm
passionate
enjoying, for the most part, I enjoy the stuff I do. Every now again, I'm always wishing that I could put aside something and dedicate more time to something.
Yeah.
And it's a balance. People ask me all the time, just what you asked. Where do you get the energy, and why the hell are you doing this? I don't have an answer for either one. I think also, certainly in my case, I'm a late bloomer. I did not really gear myself up to writing the film projects and other things. I mean, I curated some exhibits at the museum. I didn't gear up until I was in my 40s. And it was like a period of where always trying to figure out, what am I going to do when I grow up? Yeah. And I feel like I still ask that question to myself. What are you going to do when you grow up? Like, dude, you're 61. When are you going to grow up? And then I'm like, as long as I have that mentality, then I won't get old.
So was there something that kind of like a light that went off, a light that turned on when you were 40, or?
I don't know. I think that everybody, or I think a lot of people have paradigm shifts in their life, where they might do something entirely out of the ordinary, and then they do a shift. Certainly leaving New England, where I grew up, my friends, the other rest of my family I had there. I mean, that was a huge paradigm shift. And when I say that, I mean, my decision to do that was almost instant. I mean, it was like within a week where I went, no, this isn't a good situation, dude. You need to get out of here because they're going south. And that was a big shift. I just had different things, relationships. Maybe a relationship, went sour, and I went, this isn't working, and I can't really tell you what all these, I just feel as if I've had maybe 2, maybe 3. And I don't mean things where you go, I don't like this job. I'm going to leave this job, go to this other job, and I am tired of listening to rock. I'm going to start listening to hip hop, and I'm going to do this. I'm talking monumental shifts and for me, they're hair triggered. They're just hair triggered shifts that I do.
Yeah.
I had a relationship, for instance, that was really bad, and that was an instant paradigm shift. I was like, not doing this and not going into this direction anymore. I'm doing this now. And it's a huge awakening because I know when I have that type of a shift, because as soon as I do it, it's like this huge, gigantic world that opens up. And you're looking out and you're like, wow, where did this come from? I never saw this. I don't know why this comes to my mind, but anyhow, this is kind of bizarre. This is like, you're going to go, well, how the hell did we get from here to here? But anyhow, I collect movie posters. I love the old classic 1950s sci-fi horror movies and stuff. And at one point I was watching, I think it was like a year ago, they had The Incredible Shrinking Man on, Richard Matheson's story. You might have seen it. I don't know.
No.
Oh my goodness, you got to see it because, he's on a boat in the very beginning, goes through this mist, and from that point on, he starts shrinking. And they made a remake of it, but in this one here, he starts shrinking and ends up in the cellar, and there's a giant spider. Now it's giant because he's so big. And the whole thing is revolving around his survival in the cellar. He's constantly getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And the survival comes down to him, the spider, and the spider has a block of bread, I think it was. In the book, it was bread. I think in the movie, it's cheese. But anyhow, so he decides it's now or never because I can only pick up, the needle and I can only make out of thread a rope. I'm getting smaller. Sooner or later, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to be strong enough. The spider's going to get me. So basically, in the end, he kills the spider. So the nemesis is gone. And for the first time, he's up where the spider is. He's by the window. And for the first time, he's so small now he can get through the little square of the screen. And he looks out, and here's this ginormous world that he's never seen because he's never been that small to see it. And decides, in the book anyways, that life is worth living because his whole world has ended and he's going into a new world. And it's like, I was watching it and I was like, well, that's how I feel when I do like a drastic shift in my life. And I decided, it's like, I'm like looking at that, and he's just mesmerized looking out at this whole world in front of him to explore. And so, yeah, pulling my old sci-fi story out of a hat of trying to explain something, which I don't know if
I love that. It makes me think of, I was going to bring this up. It makes me think of, there's a book by Stephen Pressfield called The War of Art.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know Stephen Pressfield? Do you know that book?
Yes.
Yeah.
I do know the book.
And I love it because, like, I was going to bring it up earlier, but then everything you were saying just kind of made me think of it too. How you didn't know how to make a movie.
No, I had no idea.
But that didn't stop you. And the idea that there's someone who wants to make a movie and they go, well, I don't know how to make a movie. Okay, well, let's just back up. What's step one? You have to write it, right? Yeah, but then what? Doesn't matter. Just write the screenplay, and then we'll see what happens after that. And there's all these angels behind you on glass pounding, going, we're going to show you step 2, but we can't show you unless you do step 1.
The Mountain Runners really started out as a book, probably a couple of years before. And when we started heading towards the anniversary of it, is when it actually turned into a film. And so after the film was done, I went back to the book. So I've been monkeying around with this thing for maybe 15 years, which actually worked out good because every time the film was shown or something, a little bit more information would come. It'd be like a jigsaw puzzle that was slowly forming.
Yeah. It's funny how like I said, like when people ask like, oh, what brought you up here? I'm like, well, it was this movie that I accidentally found. And then I bailed on this race and met Dan. And then like, that was it. You know,
it's funny. Yeah. Because you brought up that you did the Chucking Up 50.
Yeah.
And you do know that in the film, that's how I got a hold of Chrissy Mail.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And she's from Skagit.
She actually, I've been talking to her because I was reading a book called, do you know that running book called Born to Run?
Oh, yeah.
By Chris McDougall?
Oh, yeah.
So I was reading that to my kids. Or no, I was reading Running with Sherman, the second one, the donkey.
Yeah, okay.
And he mentioned Chrissy.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm reading it to my students. I go, you guys, I think Chrissy, I go, hey guys, see that DNF bib that I always refer to? How that changed my running career? They go, yeah. I go, that's Chrissy's race. And so I actually ended up, I emailed Chris McDougall. I told him the whole story about Chucking Up 50K and how I DNF'd and how it brought me to the Mount Baker Ultra, but also Chrissy's in your book. And I teach second grade at Edison, and she was in my classroom. Like, I never taught her, but she took second grade in my room. And I just think some of my friends know her. I just think it's really cool, all these crazy connections. And I said, I really want, she might even come to my class and give a little speech. And he finishes, he writes me back and just says, thank you. He goes, I'm going to send you some Sherman tattoos. And he goes, also, if Chrissy's coming to your class to speak, I want to come too. And I was like, oh my God, well, this is different. No, we're going to have this at the high school now. This is going to, and I'm thinking of other ultra runners that I can get to come. COVID hit.
Well, if it happens again and you do a dinner or something, I would love to go. Because here's my spin, is I met Chrissy through Doug McKeever, who was in the film.
Okay.
And he is known as one of the pioneers for ultra running.
Okay.
So he introduced me to her. So I interviewed her for the film. And of course, I used my passion to say, can you help me out with any other ideas or anything I can do with this film? And so, first of all, she got me in touch with the editor of Running Magazine.
Oh, okay.
And they did their very first photo spread ever of that race.
Oh.
And they were like, are you sure this was America's first mountain race? And I says, I am throwing out the die on this and saying that, yes, it was. So they're like, all right, but it's on you if we get flack. They never got anything. Yeah. And they did like 4 or 5 pages. So then Christy was like, well, come on down to the race headquarters. She goes, and I'll introduce you to Scott Jarrett.
Yeah.
And Scott is in Born to Run. He's one of the main the main people in it. So he's getting ready for the run. This is crazy. He's getting ready for the run because he did the Chucking Up 50.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, hey, I'm a friend of Chrissy's doing this film. Can I interview you after? All right. So he does the race. I get him as soon as he gets off the finish line. Sit down at a coffee table, and not a coffee, at a picnic table, and I did an interview.
Right there at Fairhaven Park?
Right there in the park. So then we go ahead, and that's when I met, after I met Brian, we go to look at the film, and the film there was so much noise that you couldn't hear him.
Oh.
So ignorance is bliss, comes to the rescue like a Superman outfit. And I'm like, well, he's going to be at the race this year. I'll ask him if I can interview him again. So I see him and I'm like, Scott, remember me? Da, 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 da. And he's like, yeah. He goes, well, I interviewed you last year. It didn't work out. He says, what do you say after the race? You come on over to a friend of mine's studio and we'll do this. And he's just like looking at me. He's like, well, all right. And he's got his girlfriend who he ended up marrying eventually. And he's like, well, what do you think? And he goes, well, she's like, well, yeah, you need to help him. So he's like, all right. So he came over and he spent like an afternoon with us. I'm like, just after he got done doing the 50K, he's over there sitting down, changing his clothes, at my friends, and he's like, all right, let's go. So that's how you see him in the film as it is. And so before that, it was horrible. And then there he is there. And I'm like, are you serious? I'm like, you don't know me, heads of beans. You don't know who the hell I am. I just walk up to you. Hey, I'm a friend of Christy's. Will you do it? Yeah, okay. And I'm like, wow.
That's awesome. I love that.
That's passion. And that's how I got him.
Yeah. Oh, that's so
yeah,
cool.
That is just so bizarre. I mean, I was just like in shock. How did this happen?
So many people just don't ask.
Yeah,
and
just
if
ask.
Someone says no, well,
you didn't lose anything.
You would have got that if you didn't ask anyway.
That's right.
So it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I don't really recall. I there's nothing popping into my head right now of anything that I didn't ask for and didn't get while doing that film.
Yeah. And the film was nominated for an Emmy, correct?
2 Emmys. Well, Brian has done film,
Okay.
So he knew what he was doing.
So that's his background.
That's his background.
Okay.
But I worked on the thing for maybe, overall that film took about 3 years to do.
Yeah.
And it wasn't primarily because there was a struggle doing it. It was like that because we did not want to owe on it.
Yeah.
No one was going to be out of pocket. And actually, elements would have been done sooner, but the second year, we had some critical filming that we wanted to do on the mountain, but it's like winter slammed in like 6 weeks early.
Oh.
And that was it. We were shut down.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's nothing we could do. It's like we're going to have to wait till the next year for that segment. It was a blessing, but that was the one deal I made with myself was no one's going to be in the hole, no one's going to owe any, and we made money to make the film. I mean, we sold T-shirts and hats and sweatshirts and hoodies and basically look for so basically the freebies are in-kind service. So a lot of in-kind service. And I had a lot of people donate. We set up an account. Pickford was our nonprofit, and so we had pitches. We went around doing slideshows of the original race. And so we were constantly making money to also put towards, the whole thing.
And you didn't really have a deadline.
We didn't have a deadline.
Yeah.
We had a self-made deadline. We really were coping on 2011, but that just proved to be totally impossible. Combination of editing and the mountain shutting down for filming 1 year.
Yeah.
So we were good. Well, we'll do it the second year of the original race.
Yeah.
And so that worked, just as well for us. But no, I didn't really have a deadline. We were hoping to do it during the anniversary period, just for the added publicity and the punch. But
for sure,
same thing with the book on it. Nobody knows it's coming. So
yeah.
So, but 15 years is getting to be kind of ridiculous. So
my favorite photo from the movie is the one of the train that's derailed.
Yeah, that was, you mean the reenactment images of it? Yeah, Eric did that.
Yeah,
that was,
of Haggard standing there in his robe and all the guys around him, and I love that.
Yeah, that was, and thank goodness.
So Eric did that?
Eric did that. Yeah,
really.
Eric did that. He did the maps.
Do you know I have that tattooed on my arm?
What's that?
That picture.
of the train?
Yeah. So I
I didn't know about that.
I sent it to Eric, and I think he was having dinner with you, and he
Oh,
said,
wow.
and I thought he said, "Oh my gosh, I can't wait to show them," or something like that. So
It's like it's a puzzle. And in my mind, I'm going, well, okay, I'm going to need this, and I want to have this, and it was like twice I was like, I need helicopters. I need to find helicopters, and it'd be music. I mean, the soundtrack was made for that. Pretty Little Feat up in Bellingham, and they did this.
how did you find them? I love that song, the theme song.
Well, there's a whole disc of music that they did. It's completed. It's called the Mountain Runners. Yeah, we needed like something that was kind of Americana, and on Thursdays, I think it was at Boundary Bay, they would have music down in the beer garden.
Yeah.
And they were like, every Thursday, they were like, yeah, go up and throw up a table and hats and sell your stuff and everything for the film. And so they let us did that every Thursday, and they'd have all this music up there. And there was a guy, I don't remember who he is now, but he had kind of that twangy Americana sound. So I approached him, and he was like, no, you don't want me, you want these guys. This is exactly what you want.
Yeah.
And so I approached them, saw them play somewhere, and it was like, yeah, that's kind of the sound we're looking for. And their instruments are period. I mean, the instruments are as old as when the film was dictated.
Oh, that's awesome.
At. And so Matt and Allegra, Pretty Little Feat. And so I said, I'm doing this film. I might be able to pay you something. I can't guarantee anything. I said, but, and they were like, no, this is our genre. And they wanted photos, stills, anything and everything I had so he could draw inspiration.
Oh, okay.
And so he did all the lyrics, and she did, I believe, a lot of the rhythm and the sound that it was going to be. And they put together an entire album.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I Runner's Mountain, that's the song.
Runner's Mountain, yeah.
Then I was going to say the film Hawkett 2 that's being filmed right now. The director AJ, he was in concrete as usual, walking around with his friends, and he was showing them the architecture because they were really into architecture, and he was talking with the buildings. And there was a show at the theater, and there's not often live music at the theater, but there was 3 bands that night. And so he wandered in because they went in, and my buddy Cody was playing, and AJ walked in, he heard Cody's voice, and he's like, I need that. Mm-hmm. So Cody just released an album on Friday, and one of the songs is called Hawkett.
Oh, wow.
And I'm singing it in my head already. Like, it's the story of who Hawkett is, and I love that. That's so cool that, not only that he had AJ got a song written for Hawkett, but that's how he discovered him, was at the Concrete Theater. There's an author named Mark Manson, and he talks about how one of the biggest things he wishes he would have learned earlier was be okay with getting embarrassed. Like, get embarrassed early. Like, get out of the way. Make a fool of yourself. Because that's what holds a lot of people back.
Oh, it's difficult. I mean, I've never had really any problems with my film stuff. I've had times with my books where, I mean, it's, for a lot of people, I can imagine it's crushing and disheartening to open up a review and somebody goes, what the fuck was this person thinking of? This guy cannot write a freaking kindergarten book, and I can imagine how crushing. I mean, I got reviews like that, but what I've decided a long time ago is I'm not married to my work. Anything I do, I need to keep it separated from who I am. I mean, yes, that's part of me, and that's my work. But if I'm going to become so involved in that work that I can't take knocks, and I can't take, For everybody who hates it, there's somebody who loves it.
Yeah.
And all that perspectives is nothing more than the person who is interpreting whether they like it or not or whatever.
Okay, so before we go, I have to bring up the second thing that Brian mentioned.
Oh, boy. You're going to bring him up again?
Well, I saved the best for last, though.
Okay.
He said, ask him about the Golden Toilet Award for crapifying footage to make the film look old.
Oh, yeah.
What is he talking about?
Oh, yeah. God, we did create an award for that.
You made the award?
I don't remember if I made it or we made it. Anyways, so it was just funny because when we were making the film, first of all, I think we were at a pivotal area where the cameras were changing in quality. And so I think the reds were just coming out, and we had like an older version. So, and I'm like, oh, I don't give a damn. I'm making an old film. I mean, really? This is a period film.
Yeah.
Crystal clear is not exactly what we want. But through the thing, we were like, it's so bizarre that people watch the film, and I get this so many times, and there is such a thing of seeing something, becoming so involved with something. We would say, you're watching this film for the first time. You're going to see it in a different light than us because we'll never see it for the first time. Mm-hmm. When you're doing it from its development, you never see it for the first time. So we would be like, well, we need to make stuff kind of period looking. So Brian thought it was kind of funny. He's like, so we're actually taking good film and we're crapifying it so that it looks period so we can put it up. So he says, we're not trying to make it look good. We're trying to make it look crappy. So then we got that. And I don't know. Maybe it was me. I don't remember if it was me or both. It seemed like I gave Brian an award of a golden toilet or something and for perfection of crapification of film in a Hollywood setting. And so, I forgot about that. Yeah, so it was like, we're doing the opposite of what we should do. We're trying to make it look bad.
It worked. It was fine.
But, it's amazing to this day. Every time I show the film, I constantly, every year we show it at Pickford Film Center.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, we always show it a week before the Ski to Sea.
Yeah.
So every year. And I'll be damned if not during it or after out in the Q&A out in the lobby, it'd be like either, where did you get that footage? Where'd that footage come from? How did you find it? And it's like, it's not real, but we look at it with our eyes from its beginnings, and we're mystified. We're going, what the hell are you talking about? How did you think that is? But like I said, Brian said from early on, he's like, we'll never see this film.
Yeah.
We'll never see it.
That's interesting.
Because we'll never see it like the audience does.
Yeah.
And so that mystifies me every time when somebody sees that, because I'm like, dude, it's not that good. Okay?
It's not that good.
We worked with what we had. It's not that good. I mean, like, yeah, all right. But it's really a mystery of how people actually think that's it. How did they get footage of the train hitting the ball? It's like, it's not real.
No, that's great. I think we should end, though, on you saying that the film's not that good. I think that's a good...
Film's just not that good.
It's Brian's film. Brian's film is not that good.
If there's anything wrong with it, I fought so hard. But no, great filmmaker Brian Young from Jet City Film said, no, this is the way it's got to be. And because of that, we never got on the Oscar stage.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, it's all Brian's fault.
We'll have to have Brian come on and defend himself.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming over, Todd.